Dear viewers, today we'll be learning about the injuries of the brachial plexus. Now, this brachial plexus injuries, they can affect both adults and the children. As the anatomy is the same, but there are many differences in the mechanism of injury, type of injury, and the degree of the injury. And this will be affecting the treatment plans. We all know that brachial plexus is located superficially between two highly mobile structures. And what are these? The neck and the arm. That's why these injuries are more likely traction type of injuries. We can classify the injuries of brachial plexus into the injuries which are affecting the upper and the lower part of the plexus. And the second variant, the injuries are involving the regions of the brachial plexus. And regions are root, trunks, divisions, cords, and terminal branches. Today we'll be talking about only the injuries which are affecting the upper and the lower part of my brachial plexus. So, the Herb-Duchenne paralysis is the injury which is affecting my upper part of the plexus, and I'm taking an example of a neonate. So, let's look at this. So, what are the risk factors which are occurring during the cephalic type of delivery, during a normal delivery? Look at this child. Now, let's look at first the risk factors. High birth weight, more than 4,000 grams. Shoulder dystocia. Cephalopelvic disproportion means the head of the baby, the circumference of the head of the baby is not aligned with the measurements of pelvic outlet. And then usage of instruments, forceps, vacuum, or the poor techniques, they all are the causes for having upper plexus injury. In this image, what are you looking at? Look at this. This is a classic example, the shoulder dystocia. The head of the shoulder of this neonate is stuck, and this is the pubic symphysis of the mother, and it stuck here, and that's why the resultant is. So what happens? So there is an extra traction and the stretching of the neck, and that will lead to what? Increase the angle. The angle between the shoulder and the head is increased, and this will lead to, it may lead to upper part of the plexus injury. And what are the segments here? Most likely C5 and C6, and sometime there is involvement of C7 has also been seen. So this is the classic example in a neonate at the time of cephalic delivery, a normal delivery, a vaginal delivery. Now when we look at an adult type of injury, so what happens? Somebody falls down. As a result of this fall, look at the angle between the head and the shoulder. And now again it will be affecting the upper trunk, and that is the C5 and C6. And this will lead to a typical deformity of the limb. Now, when we look at it, those who are affected, they are not able to abduct their arm at the shoulder. They are not able to flex their elbow at their elbow joint. They are not able to supinate their forearm. Their upper limb is medially rotated at the shoulder joint. So this is a classic type of Herb-Duchenne presentation. And this is the hand, and this is classic waiter tips hand. And now let's look at through this table how different factors are affecting. So this is the overaction of the antagonist muscle in the upper plexus injuries. So first we said the arms are of those who are affected by the upper plexus injury, their upper limb is kept in the adducted position. So their arm is adducted because abductors are not working. So there is a paralysis of who are the abductors? The deltoid and the supraspinatus. So only the action of adductors is in picture. So that's why the arm is adducted by the body. there will be a medial rotation and this will not go into lateral rotation. The reason is my teres minor and infraspinatus, they are paralyzed. So medial rotator are only in action. Then you can see this elbow joint at my forearm. The elbow joint is in extended format because the flexors are not working. And who are those? Biceps and the brachialis. So extensors are only working. And then the forearm is in the pronated shape. So this pronation is because biceps is not working. So, and pronator teres and quadratus, they are only active. So biceps is the main supinator muscle. So these are the factors which predispose to this classic Duchenne paralysis, where we have the involvement of the upper part of the plexus and the hand goes in this classic pattern, which is Vater Tips hand, and it has so many other names. I hope this is clear to you all. Now let's look at the injuries which are affecting the lower plexus, and that is famous with the name of Klumpke's paralysis. And now look at this neonate at the time of delivery. The hand of this, the upper limb of this neonate is being getting out first rather than the head goes out, and now the obstetrician is trying to maneuver it, and as a result what will happen? There is an hyperabduction of the arm, and when it's been pulled out, this hyperabduction, you can see that it's there, and that will result into the involvement of the nerve roots, and primarily C8 and T1 and plus minus C7 can be affected, and as a result of that, a classic ulnar claw can be manifested in this Klumpke's type of paralysis. Now if you look at an adult example, somebody is falling from a height. On the way, he was able to grab some support. So now look at it. Because of this, there is a weight, gravity, there is an hyperabduction. And this will result in what? In a classic ulnar claw, and that is my Klumpke's paralysis. Now, first we have the ulnar claw, and these are the reasons for having the ulnar claw. There might be loss of sensation along the medial border of the forearm and the hand, and if during this type of injury, if the sympathetic trunk, sympathetic cord is being broken, so then we may have classic of Horner syndrome, and Horner syndrome is characterized by partial ptosis, meiosis, and hydrosis and ophthalmos. So this is the classic of my lower plexus injury. Thank you very much.